wasn't obvious enough, I'm right now coming home from a very major event in my life so far. And I know what you're gonna say. Oh, did you just go and see Deadpool 2? Was it equally as amazing as Avengers Infinity War? Well, no, that's actually not it. Even though I'm very hyped for that movie, that's not really what I'm coming home for. And what I do come home for, oh my days, well, I tell you, just in a while, I will just, get comfortable enough to actually take off my clothes that I bring from the outdoors. Because, well, you want to be a bit comfortable now, wouldn't you say? I would certainly say so. But I would like to establish this personal connection that we have going on all of the time. By the way, we're going off script, even though I never have a script, but we're going off structure of the week. Because yesterday I was thinking, let's introduce this debate. And even though I want to talk about the debate of social convention and political correctness by the monk debate as much as anybody else, we're just not going to do that today, because today something major happened that I have been planning, but that has been in my mind for the last 6 months, but that I never really thought of over the last couple of weeks. I've just been thinking it's gonna be done. It's gonna be done. It's gonna be done. I haven't actually paid any attention for that. Wow, today is actually the day. And honestly, right, I don't feel it at the moment that was actually the day. But before we go into that, I'm gonna mention a kind of a strange thing. Got to school today and someone said, we won the Hockey League Eurovision, I don't know what's called, the World Championship, not Eurovision. We won the, Eurovision was a disaster for Sweden, am I right? Anyway, we won the World Championship in hockey. And just to establish, right, context, as is important as ever, I'm not that big of a sports guy, and to illustrate how big of a sports guy I'm not, I just stood there and thought like, oh, does Sweden have an ice hockey team? It's on that level. I'm really that off when it comes to sports and stuff. So my friend was all like, yeah, we won! And I was like, what's ice hockey? Which one of the club teams is that? Which one of the club sports is that? Anyway, so more than that I am culturally both insensitive and uneducated, Street smarts is at, well, that level. Down, far down here. Somewhere, unfortunately. And by the way, isn't it kind of interesting and kind of odd that when people sit and watch sports, they say that, oh, we won! We won! I mean, it's one specialized team going out on the, what I understood it to be ice, right? When it's ice hockey. Football is the one on grass, yeah? I'm with you, yeah? I'm leveled. I'm current, am I right? Anyway, it's a highly trained, specialized team that's going out on the ice playing a game of hockey, right? Now, I wouldn't like to state that I actually know the rules for what is happening out there, but something extraordinarily complex is happening out on the ice, containing lots of different players that are, as I said, highly specialized in what they do, and they played the game and they won, right? But what I don't really get is that people in their sofas at home are sitting and saying like, we did it, Sweden won. And I'm like, no, technically they represent Sweden, yes, but you didn't do no shit, you and your sofa. You was just sitting there and watching the entire thing. It was actually the specialized team out on the ice who did all of the action, wasn't it? Anyway, that matters less. I think that I've, insulted enough of people for today, yeah? Or at least until we're going to go into me describing that what I've done over the last 6 months has been hard work. Because I've almost put in like 8 hours a day every single day this month. I know, it's crazy, right? Can you imagine working like 8 hours a day for an entire month? It's ludicrous. It's ludicrous is all I say, right? I'm not saying that there are people out there who is doing that without complaining and actually getting paid. But that's an entirely different story now, isn't it? Because that's not university. It's not like university when you actually need to read a book every other month. It's hard, isn't it? No, it's actually more than that. But I'm ridiculing for comedic effect that probably didn't land anyway. It's important to be self-aware, right? Anyway, so what is he talking about? What is it that he is standing in front of a camera, uploading things to the internet and ramble about today? Well, my little corner of the internet. Today I'm talking about that I handed in, well, we were a team, right? Handed in the thesis. Woo! and oh my days, did the stress not go away. It's kind of interesting, isn't it? Or at least for me, I was going to say you and put this into like a generalized context, where I realized simultaneously that I probably can't do that. But it's kind of interesting that I've been thinking about this as stressful all of this time. And what is kind of ridiculous and kind of ridiculing is that I've been laying sleepless at nights, yeah? There's several weeks of this half a year, of this semester, when I'm gonna randomly think like, oh, it's a thesis. Oh my days, it's this thesis that's gonna be done. I need to work for it till morning, and oh my days, I can't really go to sleep. There's too much stress, there's too much pressure. And then you print the bloody thing, and it's just some pieces of paper. It's not even a book. We're talking like, at the maximum, the biggest our word, like 105 pages, yeah? And to some of you, that might sound ludicrously high, right? 105 pages? That's amazing! That's so many pages, right? But let's put it into perspective. Here is about a regular book. Now, does this look thick? No, it probably doesn't. And this is about 350 pages, right? Now, ours was like a third of this. Imagine how thin that is. I mean, sure, we put in a lot of effort. We did all of the research. Research business. That pun didn't actually work. I mean, we put in a lot of time. We developed new actual theory that can be applied in the field of research that we were actually researching. We made a real contribution to theory. And that actually had some practical implications as well. And that's amazing in my world. I can't really wrap my head around it as I'm saying it as right now. But it's still just 100 pages. I mean, the ridicule, as I said, of watching that piece of paper hitting the floor or hitting the... Sorry, I just didn't throw it on the floor. But hitting the table when I was done. Just like, guys, I printed it. And it, you know how it flies when it's just one piece of paper? It kind of did the same thing, a bit faster, but still it was this. Hey guys, here is our entire work for the semester. Throwing it out in the air, and it's just like, you know, a proper book is heavy enough that it's just like, bam, right down on the table. This was more like, well, all of our hopes and dreams are dwindling down together at least. It just felt so stupid to have been feeling stressed over such a little thing. Over such a thing that just amounted to pieces of paper. And yet again, it's what is inside of it that makes the difference. And I totally get that. And there are people in my year who has been doing solid research, right? And actually made it enormously, well, I'm saying enormously, that's probably absolutely the wrong word. But they made a significant, contribution to their field. So obviously it's all about what is inside, but it just feels so weird when you're looking at the pieces of paper and you're thinking, I was stressed about this. And it's just like marginally bigger than anything I've ever done before at university, right? It feels like the exact same thing when you stand and you read through it and you're just like, okay, it's 100 pages, sure, but it's just paper after all. As I said, obviously that's not how you can view it, but it still feels very weird. And another thing that was kind of funny as well, that I called up one of my mates and I was like, so I'm done with the thesis. First of all, he put me on hold for like 15 minutes. I was like, hi, do you know what? And he was like, nah, sorry, it's another call, mate. I'm just going to take this, yeah? And I was like, yeah, sure, I'll hold. And so I walked all my way home and then I stood here a bit outside of the door and I was like, so do you have like 5 seconds? It's all that I really need. And he was like, yeah, sure, sorry that you have to hold. What was it? And I was like, I'm done with the thesis. And he's like, great. And I was like, yeah, that's great. That's probably all that it is. And he's like, don't you feel relieved? And I was like, no, not really. Because what I was thinking about in that moment was that, first of all, haven't really set, right? The moment hasn't truly set that I'm done with the thesis. I assume. Because we handed it in like an hour ago or something like that. Crazy, right? In my brain, I'm probably still currently in the thesis mode. And we haven't done the defense, we haven't done any of those stuff. So that is all to come in the future. So I can't just drop all of the knowledge out of my head, right? Can't just put it all in a mental plateau and blow it up with dynamite. That's not how it's gonna work. I still need to have it in my head. But it still feels like I haven't really got that relief of, oh, it's done. It's at least had it in, right? Might be because of my mindset that, well, we're actually done, but it can also be because that was the kind of thing that I realized when I was talking to my mate. I was like, no, I don't feel that relieved. And he's like, why don't you feel relieved? I mean, you've done so many things over this last month, and I know that you've been talking to me and saying that, well, I'm a bit stressed out about it and all of that and all of those things. And he was like, so don't you feel happy that the stress is something that you don't have to care about now? Now you only have like one course. Sure, it's like advanced corporate finance, but like who cares, right? It's just one course. You don't have both of them at the same time. And I was like, yeah, sure. But still, I'd rather have every day of the week, right? I'd rather have the stress of the thesis than having the stress of not knowing what I'm going to do with my future. And I think that this is something that many people disregard, right? They're thinking, what's the nearest deadline? Okay, I'm going to stress about that. Why? Well, because it's the closest to me, right? This deadline, this thesis is the closest to me right now. It's the closest, biggest thing I have. 21st of May. It needs to be bloody done. Okay? But I'll invite you to look like 2-3 months down the line. What are you going to do then? After summer? Maybe you have a summer job. Maybe you do a master's. Then all of your problems are solved. You can escape reality for a bit longer. But what do you do then if you don't have a master's, right? It's time to get a job. And since I do not have a job, at least not lined up for me, and I wouldn't categorize this like as a job, even though it's something that I'm investing considerable amount of resources and time into, it's not something that I would really say would provide a sufficient amount of profit to keep my rent going. And even if it did, in the best case scenario, in the weirdest case scenario, right, it would absolutely not keep food in my stomach or in my mouth. So there are a couple of problems with that. But most people are thinking like, oh yeah, the thesis is bloody done. It's finally done. We did it. Now it's time to party, and just throw all our cares away. Well, so I'm sitting there thinking like, I'm just more stressed now. Why? Well, because I handed in this thing that was a rather stressful thing to do. But that stress kind of masqueraded and well, yeah, masked the other stress of the future, of the uncertainty of that I'm not knowing what I'm going to do. Sure, I have lots of doors open at the moment, I might just say, a bit smug, but hey, that's the way you're going to take it, right? I mean, sometimes you need to really embrace what you have, and I have a lot of doors open if the thesis gets through. If the thesis doesn't get through, well, then one can argue that, well, then the stress levels of, completing the thesis should be high. Yeah, but simultaneously, if it doesn't pass, then the stress level of me not knowing at all what I'm going to do after summer is going to be that much higher than the thesis could ever be, right? Because the most the thesis could be is like, well, I didn't pass, now it's a real problem, right? But that's not based on the thesis really, it's just based on my planning of the future. One can argue, right? I mean, you need to take the blame in certain situations, right? It was just like Stephen Fry said, it's not that the right is doing something good, it's that the left is horribly failing. I'm not taking a political side, I'm just saying you can put in whatever you want in those boxes, and instead of saying that, they're good, you're saying, no, they're not good, it's just us who are failing. Which I thought was kind of a neat twist. Now, you shouldn't say that other people are stupid and bad in what they do. That's not what I'm trying to get across here. It would be an amazing defense though, now wouldn't it? And an amazing opposition just going in and be like, so, my thesis is much better than yours. What are you going to do about it? And they're like, well, that sounded strange. So, obviously, you shouldn't do that. But this is something about trying to exhale all of my excitement and stress and relief and all the problems that is just going about with this, because, well, we're done. We've gone and bloody done it. I mean, the thesis is finally done. It's crazy, really, and I know that I've said that before, but this is like, I can't really wrap my head around it, even though I don't really feel it and understand it right now. Just saying that, hey, I had it in my thesis. It sounds prestigious, and I've been someone, and that comes from someone who's been saying for a very long time, right, that university, and education, sure, it's good, but it's not the most important thing that you do, right? I mean, just because you're just because you have an education doesn't truly mean that you're educated, right? It's not really the same thing, because you can have a very fancy education, by name, but you maybe haven't learned anything. So there's a big difference between being educated and having an education. But still, this feels like one of those moments when we've applied all of the things that we've been supposed, right, to learn over the last 2.5 years. And just put it into action. Our own research paper. We've been guiding this, right? We've been taking the critical decisions to making this. We've been doing the contribution to theory based on our own observation from the empirical evidence that we've collected. It's just such a tangible thing. It's such an hands-on experience, right? Even though it's mostly related into theory. It's like, no, never mind. I was going to make a really bad comparison about theoretical physics and experimental physics. But I was like, no, that's completely different. They're actually making stuff. But just imagine that instead of just doing theory that can't actually be applied, this is more like hands-on theory, right? I'm doing stuff that I really can apply to other theory instead of just coming up with theory that's not really anchored in anything, which would be probably the more abstract PhD levels of, now I'm building on something that you guys can later build on. This is more like that guy built on something that we're gonna build on. It's the other way around, right? We're looking up to the PhD people instead of when you're at the PhD and you're looking for the future. Am I right? Am I right? Anyway, that was probably it for this short, very, very short video. I'm saying very, very short video. They're still like 15 minutes long. But I think that I got the most out of my system there. It's kind of ludicrous that, well, first of all, that, you know, my knowledge of the Swedish hockey team is so very, very limited. And second of all, that we had that in the thesis and it just amounted to pieces of paper. And thirdly, that we actually made a contribution to science. I mean, to theory, to the field. I mean, when this is done, in like a couple of weeks, why there is a distinction between a couple of weeks from now and right now, I can't really answer. Really, I mean, sure, I know that it's all about a diploma, a piece of paper, but really, can't I say that I have equally as much of an educated opinion now as I have in a couple of weeks, right? I mean, maybe not. The opposition and defense can be a big part of that, surely, but still, I'm going to argue that right now I'm on the path of getting what could be considered, right, as an educated opinion of the field. Not that I'm the most influential scholar of all time. That's not what I'm saying. But at least I have some understanding about the concepts in the field. And that is kind of cool, right? To feel like I'm actually specialized in this subject matter. Now, is that something that I feel is really interesting? Arguably not something that I should take up right now, but it's still something that, you know, you are actually some form of expert in your area because you know exactly what you've written about, hopefully, right? I mean, I can talk about all the things, the frameworks, the frame of reference, the background to the concept and to the theory. I can talk about the method, how we went about it, the methodology, the theory of the actual method, how we analyzed it, what kind of conclusions we came to, and what kind of future research you can do based on these findings. And it was kind of an exploratory field to begin with. I'm not going to shout it out because then people are just going to be like, you're wrong. And I don't want people to point out that I'm wrong in this action and in this sense before the defense, because that can make the defense rather problematic now, couldn't it? Anyway, mates, yeah, that's all I'm gonna say now before I say something either rather stupid that I can't take back if I haven't done so already in my semi-excitement, I must say. And because I have things to do. As always, isn't that just the bloody case? But yeah, tomorrow we're starting together with social convention and the monk debate about political correctness because I can't take my hands off that discussion. It's so interesting in so very many different ways. And there are so many aspects to take up. And did they really discuss political correctness? And why did they do it? And why did they not do it? And what did they actually discuss? And how can we apply political correctness to what they actually discussed? And how is that corrected or connected to political correctness? And there's so many levels. It's crazy. But we're gonna get into that after I've spent like arguably 10 hours in school doing corporate finance. Because that's just what I do. It's gonna be good. Anyway, mates, have a nice one. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.